face.
Cause of death, apparent shock and loss of blood.
And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Snob and the Slobs. I am unknown comics writer Chris Hurst, joined by my fellow slob, world-renowned comics illustrator, artist, and video editor extraordinaire, Max Hedgeshroom.
Hello.
And our snobby friend, director of both film and stage, a man who didn't need to go to film school because he already knew that Boondock Saints was a bit shit, Justin Driscoll.
Evening.
It's our first go around, so we're probably going to be a little rough the first time, but we're going to give it a go and have some fun. Tonight, we're going to talk about the movie Verotika, written and directed by Glenn Danzig, formerly of the punk band The Misfits back in the 70s and early 80s. Then the band Samhain, which got a little bit more satanic than the Misfits. And then after 3 years of Samhain, he decided to just use his own name and call the band Danzig, which was probably peak Satanism for Glenn, and got himself banned from MTV for the video Mother for showing a sacrifice of a chicken in the video. So lovely chap. It's going to be a lot of fun. This movie's a little bit crazy. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I would suggest, if you haven't seen the movie and you're interested in seeing it, I would suggest turning this off, come back and watch the after we're done, because this is a movie that needs to be experienced cold. You have to experience this and not see it coming because it's a pretty wild ride. So format for this is going to be Justin, as our snob, is going to walk us through the plot. And then we'll talk about things as we go. We've got some movie clips to show. We've got some other stuff to show throughout. We're going to share some chats. A lot of people in the chat rooms going already. So we'll share some of that on screen and talk about your comments as well. So we appreciate your comments. Like the video, please. Share it around to as many people as you can. Subscribe to the Max Hedgeshroom channel. And with that, let's get started with Verotika. Over to you, Justin.
All right. Hey, evening, everybody. As Chris said, tonight's first film is Glenn Danzig's first filmmaking effort. It's his 2019 version and adaptation of his 1994 comic series, Verotika. A portmanteau of the words violent and erotica, the movie introduces the character of Morella, our lingerie and cloak-clad crypt keeper who guides the audience through 3 stories of depraved and horrific debauchery. The albino spider of Dejette, Change of Face, and Drujika, the Baroness of Blood. Each story mixes violence and sex in the only way that Danzig could. First up, we make our way to Gay Paris. Inspired by Danzig's love of French New Wave and moody Euro horror in the vein of Diabolique and the Eyes Without a Face, the story follows the unfortunate Georgette and the horrors of her dream world may manifest. We cold open on a fully clothed woman going down on a very enthusiastic partner. As things begin to heat up and she straddles him, he attempts to feel up her ample chest. After initially holding him off, he succeeds in lifting her shirt up to reveal a pair of titties, or eyes, where her nipples should be.
We have a clip.
Yes.
Oh, please.
We have a clip.
Footage.
Yeah, hold on, Snob.
Your teeth, they're looking at me.
Don't look.
The shame.
That is.
We've all been there, though, haven't we?
Have we not? I mean, how many of us
on both sides?
On both sides.
Like, the thing is, the first time you see this, it asks so many questions that it never answers. First of all,
that's going to be a running theme in this movie. There's lots of questions and short on answers.
Yeah.
So my first question when I see this is, do the eyes stay shut the entire time unless her shirt's off? Because I feel like that'd be really irritating with the eyeballs rubbing on the shirt.
Yeah, if she had a lacy bra, surely that would scratch the cornea.
I mean, You think that'd be the case? I mean, it doesn't.
I hadn't even considered eye damage.
She must have some kind of stigma.
I feel like that's the only thing that's really. It's the only thing you can really kind of draw. The only conclusions you could draw from that.
Bristolian Dave, this is one you need to watch if you haven't already watched.
Yeah, definitely, Dave. If you haven't seen this, you need to see this.
I mean, the thing is that this kicks it out the gate right away because you're just like, okay, what are we? So the first thing is that the framing device with Morella, where she is this, devilish temptress and all that. There's this amazing eye gouging, very much that full chi, the Beyond type thing, where she, has this poor woman strapped to a cross and just fingernails in the eyeballs and just scoops it out.
Yeah, that's cool. And she's not the crypt keeper, is it? Well, what's her name again?
Morella.
Yeah, she's supposed to be kind of like Elvira or
but why isn't her name Verotika?
I don't know.
He certainly missed the trick.
Yeah, why is the film called Verotika? And her name is Verotika.
Probably the lowest question out of the many questions in this film.
Well,
I think the answer to why her character was not called Verotika is that would have made too much damn sense, and we can't have any of that in this movie. Nothing can make sense.
Yeah. Chris, I'm sorry. I think you need to understand. It's not about you not understanding or not making sense. It's about evoking emotion and mood through the storytelling.
No, it's just about shit filmmaking.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
You don't try to church it up. This is just about shit filmmaking.
So just to show how harsh it is, after you watched it the first time, and Chris had to go back and watch it a second time when we decided this was going to be the movie we're going to review on the channel. What did you do, Chris? Did you watch the film?
I couldn't fucking bring myself to watch it a second time. I went on YouTube and watched a few reviews, and I watched as many clips as I could find because I didn't want to consume this movie in one whole setting again because it is just. Look, I have a newborn, so I have no problem sleeping already. Whenever I get the opportunity to sleep, I pass out. I didn't need this to put me to sleep.
Well, I don't have a newborn, and I practically fell into a coma when I was trying to pull out all the clips for this film. I feel like Inception. I feel like I fell into a coma and then fell into another one inside the coma.
None of this is actually real. We're all existing inside of Max's coma.
We're all just figments of Max's imagination.
Yeah.
The film splits up into three stories, and they get infinitely more boring.
Yes, they get progressively worse.
Oh yes, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
After that clip that Chris showed, the lover ends up leaving her due to her malformation, and her tit eyes start to cry because she is just that upset. As the lover leaves, her roommate Marie from down the hall comes to comfort her from the doorway because that's what you do in Paris. You don't actually enter the space and help your friend. You just stand at the doorway and talk at her.
In a very realistic French accent.
While this is all happening, we are shown an albino spider watching closely. As her boobies cry, a tear splashes on the spider, and through evoking the emotion of her isolation and her depression and just desperation, the spider slowly morphs into a man-sized monstrosity, and thus we are introduced to Georgette and the albino spider. The first transition from the spider to the actual monster itself is actually surprisingly not too bad because it's doing this circular effect that slowly kind of fades from the admittedly terrible CGI albino spider to the actual monster itself. But when you see the monster, Chris, you're a writer. Please describe for me what this monster looks like.
It looks like if does anybody remember Bible Man? It looks
that's a very Midwest deep cut there, Chris.
It's like a bad latex costume from the 90s that like something from a like Faust or a bad Spawn remake.
Yeah, it's a full body cast that took him 9 hours every day or some shit to get into. And you can because he's a spider, he's got his arms up. But for the rest of his arms, of which he only has 4 more arms, don't.
Yeah, he has
Does he
4
have-
arms.
Yeah, I
does he have
suppose his legs
6?
count as well. Yeah, he has 6 hands, but they're just mannequin arms that they've stuck to the side of him. So he's got all this dexterity in his normal arms. But these
we may
ones
have
here, they look like 2 Action Man doll hands just hanging off.
I think we have a clip of the spider. So
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I think it's
I will say this. What absolutely completes the costume for the monster is the little French Jacques mustache.
Yeah.
Yes. It looks like Marcel Marceau kind of.
Yeah.
Like it's like a street mime, a Parisian street
a
mime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a clip.
Oh,
Let me free Dashat. Let me be real.
Let me be real.
Oh my god!
He's
And
too
the other
real.
thing about this, and I'll get to another clip here in a second because we talked about this in our show prep. The accents, like the
Yes.
only thing in this story in the movie that indicates that they're in France is the bad accents. Like there's nothing I recall anyway that's like, oh, Paris 1962. None of that.
No.
It's just
not
the
at all.
only thing that is the only indicator to you that this is in France at all is these bad accents. And here's the worst thing. And then I'm going to play the clip, and then I have a conspiracy theory because Glenn Danzig claims that he had a dialect coach
Yes.
that taught those accents. So
A
here's listen to
serious
this.
one.
Yeah, serious one. But I have a conspiracy theory about that accent coach. Let's listen to this real quick.
And they also had to learn a French accent. So it's much tougher than you think, especially if you've never spoken French before. So, yeah. So they sat with a dialect coach for weeks, learning.
For weeks.
Wow.
So here's my theory. I am convinced that the person he hired to be the dialect coach is the sign language interpreter from Nelson Mandela's funeral.
Yes. I think that's really the only logical conclusion.
That's the only, like, that guy, when he got done with the funeral in South Africa, he traveled to LA and he got a job as a dialect coach, and Glenn Danzig hired this guy to teach people that French accent.
And he did it immediately after he left the building as well.
Yes.
As soon as he got thrown out the building, he went straight to do the
Went
dialect
straight.
coach thing immediately. He didn't even go to bed.
That if you watch that interview with him on that panel, 2 things that strike me about him. One, he's serious. Like this is not him making a winking nod or a satire of this type of, like, he is very serious about this. And then the second part, kind of building on that point, is that he is not idiotic about his film references. He knows what he's talking about. He's referencing, Euro horror. He's referencing, a lot of black and white movies. Like I mentioned, Diabolique, Eyes Without a Face, which is the one that he really harkens to. In fact, he even says in this interview, "Oh, I almost cut it in black and white to evoke that emotion of that, late 50s, early 60s, early new wave, early French new wave horror." And the best that he could come up with is sound mix, like you said, a mix between Pepe Le Pew and the peasants from History of the World Part 1. Like, I don't know how he did it. In fact, it's more impressive that he had a dialect coach. That's the result, than him actually nailing the French accent.
I think the dialect coach just walked in and went, "Everybody sit down," and they sat down, and he went, "Right." Oh, ho, and then he just walked back out of the room again.
Hey, shit, guys.
And left a bunch of onions behind him.
Oh,
They all
man.
instantly got it.
I don't even know how. So as is hinted at here, the albino spider sends Georgette to sleep so that he can go out and roam the world. What happens is that he goes down the hall to Marie's apartment, who's searching in her refrigerator for a nightcap. And her only 2 choices at this point are milk or beer? So
No. Beer.
Oh yeah, beer.
Beer.
Yeah.
Beer.
Beer.
That's how you say it in French. Snob.
Yeah.
So-
Oh shit, guys, we only have milk and beer.
The albino spider surprises her, comes out of nowhere, and breaks her neck. Georgette wakes to realize with horror that her best friend has been killed. In an effort, the albino
Falling asleep.
spider sends her to sleep again, allowing him to wander free. This time, he propositions a prostitute that specializes in anal sex, and then breaks her neck when finished.
This is my favorite bit.
Oh, but how do we know she specializes in anal sex, you might ask?
First, I wish to bend you over right here and fuck you in the ass.
Monsieur is good eyes. As fuck is my specialty.
I'm sure has good eyes.
Is my specialty.
Apparently, you can tell if
prostitutes in Paris wear uniforms that indicate their level of specialty, or like little badges like you do in the army or in the military, where that shows like your MOS or your occupational
is
specialty.
it like a little pink bow tie.
A little pink badge, like, you know, I have the chocolate starfish here if I specialize in anal sex.
Oh wow,
The thing is, like, the thing that I cannot overemphasize, and what our kind of plot run through can't even begin to just highlight, is the fact how much nothingness is in this movie. So between Marie getting killed and Georgette realizing to being put to sleep again, to that scene is literally 2 minutes of nothing happening. She walks out of her maybe apartment, maybe an appointment, I don't know, makes eye contact with the camera for some reason, and then walks down
because it was there.
Fountain in it, because all French alleyways have a fountain in them, and then walks back down the alleyway again. No dialogue, no nothing, and then she posts up on the door when the albino spider propositions her.
It's like the one thing to remember if we're going to get into some of the long pauses and long nothingness. Every scene in this movie, every single one ends with a fade out.
Yes.
There is not a single well-conceived scene transition anywhere to be found. And then the other thing that happens throughout all three, and we'll probably have some clips of it later in one of the other stories, I think, but there's this continual where the actors say their line, and then Danzig just kind of hovers on them and they stare off into space waiting for him to say cut, but he never does. So
Yeah.
they say their line of oh. And it just hangs there forever until it finally fades. And then
it's almost
I'm convinced that why that is that the camera just runs out of batteries.
Yeah.
It's almost
Like
he's
he
a
just
shit
sits there and
filmmaker,
hangs
isn't
it there. Like, I don't know if cut is even in his vocabulary.
It's almost like he's just a shit filmmaker. He has all this like back end knowledge about film and
He does.
and stuff like that, but it's just not. His technical and aesthetical skills just don't reach the same peaks at all.
And these are things that we'll get into throughout.
You're being way too generous there with that. That's
Yeah.
that's not even close.
But those are things. Those are things that will be running themes in the life cycle of this show. And we mentioned it in the promo video, is the difference between a good, enjoyable bad movie and just a garbage movie.
Yeah.
And that one of the things, and one of the reasons why I like Verotika, even as crap as it is that there is that passion and there is that love of filmmaking that Danzig just doesn't have the chops. I mean, the guy's a brilliant musician, brilliant songwriter. He's written music with Johnny Cash, for crying out loud. I mean, the guy's in the 80s they called him Evil Elvis. That he's a brilliant guy and he's very smart and knows his stuff. just I don't think filmmaking's his thing.
No, it's not. Like, you know, I'm sorry, but it's. I think the you know, each one of these scenes, as Max alludes to, is like it doesn't just end, and I think that's one of the key things you have to understand when you're editing a movie and you're looking at your scene transitions. What are you hanging on? And now, once again, if you look at his inspirations, you know, once again, Diabolique being a key example of this, you'll watch this movie and it will hang on the actors and it will hang on the actresses. But the point is that these are good actors and actresses that can emote through their face and can convey, you know, the inner turmoil of this character. Not a bunch of porn actors when they, you know, when you say convey inner turmoil, they're like, what is that, double penetration? I mean, like,
wait. Did we watch the same movie? Did you just say that these were good actors that could emote? Like most of them were porn stars.
I know.
No, he's on about the other examples of that sort of directing style. Like a noir directing style.
Yeah. Gotcha.
He's given an example of when
gotcha.
it would work, and he's right. And also that noir style doesn't fit the aesthetic of the film anyway.
I almost think it would have been better if it was black and white.
Well, didn't he say that? Didn't he say that?
Yeah, but I mean, that's like talking about the aesthetic of the film. I think that if it had been black and white, that a lot of those aesthetic choices that he was trying to make might have made more sense, and we wouldn't have gotten some of the really, really bad CGI. I think the black and white could have covered up some of that.
And the extended version of that film where he's talking about having the language guy come in, he says that he tried to keep each shot as close to the panels as the comic as he could. That includes some of the color palette. So there must be a comic version of at least one of them.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. His comic book imprint, his comic book company is called Verotik, and then the comic book itself was called Satanica, and then he put the two together and came up with Verotika.
Right. So there's a strip of the spider guy. I have seen illustrations.
Yeah. I think all of these were strips.
Right. Does anyone know if that's as weird?
Comics. I mean, even in his interviews that he gives about this after screenings, he talks about how people are ravenously dedicated to these characters. They want to see accurate and faithful representations. Now, I think that's just delusion, but, you know, far be it from me to be able to have an accurate, you know, finger on the pulse of mid-90s comics interest. So, I mean, I couldn't say, but yeah, I don't know how Danzig could go out into in front of an audience after a screening of this and not realize what he's done. I mean, if he has, he's an amazing actor who should probably divert his skills into that.
Yeah, he is being serious in that.
He is. He's a very having some experience from the heavy metal side of things, as you can tell from my shirt. I'm a bit of a metalhead. Having some experience with Danzig as a music fan, he's a very serious person. He takes himself very, very seriously. Even when he's doing some very campy and schlocky stuff, he's very self-serious about it.
That's hilarious.
Well, yeah, I don't know even what to say.
And it's to the extent that sometimes you can see interviews with him, and and I'm talking about like separate from Verotika, just general interviews about him and his music career, and you never quite know if he's trolling you.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
He's so serious that like there's part of you that's
tips
like
over the edge.
It's like some of it almost becomes like, is this guy fucking with me? Like, I can't. Is this like superb sarcasm and satire? And I can't. You can never tell because he's very
serious. He's the Andy Kaufman of shitty.
Yeah. He's on like a 40-year
horror films.
He's on like a 40-year performance art piece that started with a 50s horror themed punk band.
Maybe I feel like we were talking about this before when we compare him to Tommy Wiseau, and obviously Tommy was being serious when he made The Room, wasn't he? And the instant the reaction was the way it was. He had the sort of foresight to go with it and sort of pretend that that it was all, it was his comedy movie. And I feel like Danzig is his older metal brother, who they took two different paths at that point, didn't they? Wiseau was like, yeah, it's my comedy movie, and Danzig was like, no, it's serious. Like you won't have it at all.
But Danzig's just doing what Danzig's always done. That he, like, whenever some of his, like when he got banned from MTV for the video for Mother, that whole thing of putting the sacrificing a chicken in the video was a response to people talking about him being satanic, and this was kind of his like, oh, you want to see some stuff,
right?
And like that whole video was just like I still contend that he intentionally got banned from MTV.
Well, speaking of seeing some shit, because of this second murder, which now I guess makes him a serial killer in Paris. Sure. The police have dubbed the albino spider the neck breaker.
The neck breaker. The spider mime.
So, in an effort to stay awake, Georgette goes to a sexy photo shoot where her castmates take turns trying to comfort her and blame her for what happened to Marie. After the conclusion of the shoot, she goes to a porno theater where she marvels at the actors making sex. That's not me joking. That's the actual dialogue.
Oh, I think we've got something here for you.
Yeah. Stand by. We have a clip.
This film. It is only people making sex. To only make sex. How?
I don't know if you can tell in that clip. We fast forwarded that.
Yes.
There was a portion of that where we fast forwarded it because
you'd all have committed suicide by now.
Well, and we probably would have gotten a copyright strike for playing too much of one clip on the video, on the live stream.
That scene is longer than the whole fucking movie.
Oh God.
Well,
yeah,
so
it's terrible.
Okay, so if you see that scene where she's sitting in the porno theater, you see this flickering light that's supposed to mimic the projector, the 35 millimeter projector. If you ever look at kind of those old war films that take place, or you might see a scene in a movie theater, you'll see that flickering light. They didn't have a projector. They literally had a Tesco style box fan and stood in front of them and just put the damn thing on so that you could get the flickering effect.
Oh my God.
Yeah, what the budget for this film was $1 million.
Was it?
Yes.
Yeah. 750 of it went to the freaking dial-up coach.
Yeah.
What did he spend it on? You look at films that absolutely nailed it for far less.
Oh my God.
And the other 200 went to that freaking CGI spider. So in this theater, the albino spider has a psychic connection with Georgette and forces her to start falling asleep and doze off. But fortunately, she awakes in time to avoid a gang rape in the theater. And I have to say, I really appreciate that, because if there's one thing I hate in bad movies is the fact of how rape is used as shorthand for evil, or as a cheap way to get nudity into a movie. So I really appreciated the input of that.
Yeah, that's one thing. I think that's another thing that'll come up a lot when we're watching some of these movies is just how there's certain things that we won't watch because of how rape is treated. Like one of them is we've talked about before, Justin. We won't watch 70s Italian slasher films because they get very rapey.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one is handled better, I guess.
I mean, she has the most ambivalent reaction to waking up to a bunch of people trying to rape her I've ever seen in cinema history. She stands up slowly and puts the coat on and then strolls off. It looks like she's just had a joint.
Yeah. She's the most relaxed,
like kind of mellow.
She's the most relaxed rape victim in the world.
Yeah. See you later.
Yeah, it's.
So after the
look, here's some advice for all aspiring filmmakers, storytellers, writers of any kind. Just for the most part, there's very, 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 very few situations where putting a rape scene into your story is going to be necessary or is going to add anything of value to your story. So just do yourself a favor, because there's nothing good that can come out of it.
So after the porno theater, Georgette decides to head to a cafe in order to try and keep awake. Yet the cafe is already starting to close. The waiter warns her to go straight home because the neck breaker.
The neck breaker.
So,
but that scene is even weirder because she sits down, then he comes over and asks her, "Do you want a refill?" But never gave her the first drink.
No. Of course, when she sits down, the cup of coffee is already said, or is already there. Like it's
I know it's already there, but she doesn't ever drink it.
Walks in, sits down in front of a coffee.
She said, yes,
stolen.
And then when he asked her, "Do you want a refill?" Swear to God, this is the only thing in the movie that went quick and didn't linger, because it was about a 20 to 30 second scene. She said, when he says, "Do you want a refill?" she says, "No, I am leaving." You just got here.
Yeah. Did you also notice that she paid for her coffee with a €50 note?
No, I didn't notice that.
Walked away.
And the best part of that is this whole movie was filmed in LA. So,
So if you go back to the actual,
I guarantee you, no one Googled exchange rates.
No. So just to kind of go back to Danzig's delusion of grandeur, when Georgette goes into the porno theater, on the marquee is a French title, forget the pronunciation of it, but it literally translates to The New Eyes Without a Face. And Eyes Without a Face is a very famous 1960s French horror movie about a father whose daughter was disfigured, and he cuts the faces off of women in order to help her restore her beauty, which plays more into the second story than into this one. But if you so that's in French, but if you look at all the street signs and the cars and everything else, it's all American. It's very much like English store frontage and English cars with California license plates parked out front of this thing.
They needed a continuity director.
No, they just needed a director.
They had one. It was Glenn Danzig. Have you been paying attention? You're supposed to be the smart one here. Have you been paying attention?
I get the. I mean, it's clear, isn't it? You get the idea that he really bit off more than he could chew with the film, and he probably.
But I don't think he knows that.
No, not at all.
You really?
I don't think he does.
On some level.
So after the cafe, Georgette decides to head home. Once home, she decides the end of the albino spider's reign of terror. She calls the police to inform them of a murder at her address. She then overdoses on sleeping pills, which alerts the albino spider to the fact that something is terribly wrong. He gets there just as she dies, and the police storm in. The police shoot the albino dead when he charges and lament the loss of life while staring up in bewilderment at Georgette's tit eyes. And with one last fade out, thus ends the tragedy of Georgette.
I really, really wish that one of the cops, when they were leaning over her body, would have said something like, "Oh, le titas."
Yeah, titas.
No. Her boobies have eyes.
Do we have a video clip of the death of Spider-Man?
We do. Stand by. Here we go.
Let's do it.
Don't move, monsieur! Take your hands off of her neck and move away, slowly. Hold it! That's enough! Whatever it is not going anywhere.
That's the best editing ever.
Wow.
Spider-Man No Way Home doesn't look very good, does it?
The one that I love about this scene here too is when the police break in. First of all, you could tell that this is a cheaply constructed set on a soundstage, i.e., a storage locker that Danzig rented for a weekend. And when the police have gathered them to get into the room, they literally go,
yes,
boop, and even then, you see the entire wall just shake with every hit.
It clicks to the other side when he smashes through, and when he smashes through, it's like a massive. It's totally jarring.
And it's
what he's doing the other side of the door. It's getting, and then the other side just smashes through.
Oh yeah, that's the one where
When
they're trying to batter the door down. It's like they're trying not to wake the neighbors, right? He's just like,
yeah.
Let's be honest. The French are known for their courtesy and politeness. So
yes, and police generally around the world are known for trying not to make a lot of noise and intimidate people.
Exactly.
I also love that the cops that the costumes are like members only windbreaker jackets with Inspector Clouseau hats. Like that's the best we can do for a Parisian police uniform is we've got these Inspector Clouseau hats from Epcot Center that we'll put with these windbreakers.
Hey, at least it's not bright yellow tape words on the back like in some other movies I've seen. I'll tell you what.
Oh yeah, that's very good point.
After the death of Georgette, the albino spider, Morello welcomes us back and immediately thrusts us into the change of face. So now we move from 1960s French-inspired new wave horror to the Technicolor-soaked dreams of Argento and Bravo from the 1960s and 70s Italian giallo genre, with a change of face as a moodily let descent into supposed madness.
Isn't this the one that is kind of based off of Eyes Without a Face?
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
So there's a sharp open on a woman walking alone at night. She turns and sees a mysterious silhouette in the distance. She keeps going, but when she looks back, the mysterious stranger is right behind her. After the walker denies the stranger's request to borrow her face, the stranger tackles her to the ground and cuts her face off. And the acting in this, like if you thought the acting in the first story was bad, this just goes to a whole new level. And the only reason the third one isn't the third one the acting isn't bad is because there's no dialogue.
And there's no acting.
There's no acting.
There's nothing. There's just a big nothingness. This second story, this is the one with John Travolta and Nick Cage, right?
Yes.
Yes. This face-off one. It's the whole purpose for this story existing is to get Danzig's music into the movie.
Yes.
That's it. It's the only reason he made this one.
Because as you said, we cut to a strip club where we listen to the entire song in a strip tease.
I'm pretty sure that strip tease is still going on.
There's a few strip scenes in it.
Yes.
And, they're really, really long.
Yes.
So this is I gotta say, this is probably one of my low-key favorite moments in this movie. Is the DJ brings out the mystery girl, the super titillating, erotic, and sexy, just incredibly sexy mystery girl, which is our serial killer. So remember, her entire modus operandi is to cut off faces and to wear them, which is very clearly shown by her makeup that she's wearing the face, right?
Mm-hmm.
She comes out onto the stage at a strip show where she's supposed to be the sexiest thing ever, wearing skull pasties, a fully formed thong, so not like see-through or anything like that, a mask over her face, and a cloak. And that is her stripping costume, cloak and a hood. And she literally just looks like a bat having a seizure.
I used to live in Florida, so I've seen worse.
Sounds all right to me.
I've been stationed
I'm into it.
Fort Bragg. I've seen worse.
But here's the big question. Why does she want the faces?
Because
to cover the scarring on her face.
I guess, but this is my thing. So here's
the answer is we don't know because they didn't develop this story.
Does she have shit on her face?
She does, but it's not like it's not abundantly clear that it's just.
I believe you, mate.
I have a headache, man, because this story is.
I believe you.
It's nothing. It's nothingness.
But no, here's the thing. Here's
I
the
just remember seeing like shit on her face.
She did. She had some scarring, but she didn't need to take people's faces for it.
Yeah, it wasn't like that.
It wasn't that bad. I mean,
like, if she's cutting off faces, here's the question. The idea is that she wears the faces so she can feel beautiful again, right?
But she looks like she's wearing someone's face.
Yeah, so the idea
she doesn't look beautiful. She looks fucked up.
Yeah, she's got leather face.
Why is she wearing a mask over her skin mask? If the whole purpose is for her face to look beautiful again, why is she wearing a mask?
Oh yeah, she wears a mask to cover the skin mask. Well, maybe she realizes that, like us, that the skin mask looks shit.
Yeah, she puts it on, and then it's.
So during the show, the police are investigating the murder. Shocked and baffled by the grisly crime scene, the first responders are at a loss to understand why this woman was killed. But fortunately, the sergeant leading the investigation that deduces the killer wanted her face. Because, excellent. After the show, Mystery Girl talks through her collection of faces pinned to the wall and on styrofoam dummy heads. Because if you care so much about the faces you're cutting off of people, what better way to display them than thumbtacks on some drywall or a cheap $1 styrofoam head you can get from Party City?
Right. I have an issue with that scene specifically, right? Because last year I cut the
just that one.
Well, I mean, just bear with me. I know. I mean, I have an issue with the whole film. It's shit, but we're going through it piece by piece, aren't we? So let me isolate this little nugget of Lego and tell you how shit it is. I cut the tip of my finger off last year, right? And they sewed it on. But eventually, like once it healed, it would come off. And it fell on the carpet and rolled under the bed. And I didn't find it for about a week later. And it gone really hard. There's no way them faces that she put on her wall, that was like in 2 days. There's no way them faces that she put on her wall would not turn to scratchings after a couple of days.
Hey,
but to be fair, in Danzig, to defend Danzig just slightly, that fact is also true of Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, of Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. Like the fact of the desiccation of flesh is true for all horror movies, but it happens and it's ignored all the time. But normally, if the story is good, you don't notice those things.
Well, to be fair, they're also make a point.
No, I'm not shitting on your point. I'm just defending. I'm just defending what I'm actually saying.
Sure, because it sounds like
the fact that it's a problem that you can notice is evidence of how badly written and how badly conceived the story is. Because if you have a good story, you can get away with a lot of those kind of bullshit things.
That's the issue with this whole movie, is that it seems like Danzig has this puerile obsession with shocking images that don't connect to the story at all. It's like, okay, I see a woman that cuts off faces. Why? I don't care about that.
Let's give the audience a little view of the face cutting.
Okay, yeah.
So we're talking about.
Hang on, Justin.
Hang on, Snob.
We have a clip.
Snob.
Well, if you aren't going to give it to me, then I'll guess I'll just have to take it from you.
No! No!
Now look what you made me do.
Oh my god!
How shit is that?
The editing of that is so.
Now look what you made me do.
Oh my god! Now, bear in mind, people, back to what Max and I were alluding to just a few minutes ago. That gorgeous brunette that cut the woman's face off. That's the woman who feels like her face is so mutilated that she needs to cut people's face off.
Yeah.
Sure,
so I go back to, why is she cutting people's faces off?
I could understand if it was me.
Yeah. I think you should look into it.
So, asking if the faces want more company, which they readily agree to, she sets off in search of her next victim.
Scratching.
She finds her next victim, which is caught unawares. Although she is there and didn't call maintenance that day, the mystery girl takes her face as well. Her victim survives for a moment, bleeding out and lamenting the loss of her face. Now, I want to say something here. What I love here is she asks her, why is she there? And her response to that is, haven't you heard I collect faces?
I can't even think of a joke to put there.
No, I love it. And the woman's response is to, hello, who is there? I am here. I didn't call maintenance today. That's her chain of logic.
That sounds like a Joe Biden speech, man.
Ooh, man.
Don't you know I collect faces?
All right.
No. I meant the random nonsense
I know.
thought process.
Oh, right. The
yeah.
Shit doesn't
So
make any sense.
after she murders this person, the next shows up and is once again punctuated by Mystery Girl's succubus-like performance. But during this performance, she is haunted by hallucinations of her past victims, which are very clearly just like freaking hamburgers stuck on people's faces. Is one step under Mystery Girl, whose crime sense was twigged by the fact there was a dead body in an apartment with no witnesses or pedestrians to stumble upon her. But yet he was still able to find the scene quickly enough to make an identification of the victim. After this next show, Mystery Girl holds court in front of her wall of faces again. At the crime scene, the sergeant's assistant finds a card for the strip club that her and Mystery Girl work at. Using his expert deductive skills, he figures out that Mystery Girl is the killer. But the Mystery Girl's friend warns her that the cops are there for her, and the friend agrees to hold him off, which turns into pretty much this. He walks backstage. She steps in front of him. She says, "Hey, no one is allowed to come back here." He says, "Move out of the way or I'll take you downtown." And she goes, "Okay." And steps
Well,
out.
before that, there's actually a pretty funny line where it's "You can't come back here. There's naked girls back here." And then the cop says, "Well, there's naked girls out here too." We've got a clip of how great the acting when the cops get to when they find the body. This is some Oscar-worthy stuff.
What do you got?
What we got is grizzly, Sarge.
Oh, yeah? How grisly?
Pretty grisly. Face cut off and removed. No sign of any other body trauma. Cause of death? Apparent shock and loss of blood.
Nice. Another sicko killer. Anything else for me?
Afraid not, sir. I mean, we've got nothing. Zero evidence, which means no leads or motive.
Where's her face?
Well, that's what I was gonna get to, is whoever did this just left with it. And left no trace, nowhere to be found.
No blood trail.
Negatory.
There's your motive. They wanted her face.
The music was added in post-production. That's not the music. It's from Verotika.
How shit is that?
I love.
Like that's the
Tiger peeling.
Where's her face? Well, that's what I was going to get to. You might have opened with the face is missing. You know, I don't know. I've never been a cop, but
I mean, if a killer cuts off someone's face, I'd imagine that's their motivation. But thankfully, the sergeant there's experience enough to know that. Well,
that's the motive.
That's well, there it is. That's the motive.
The motive is they wanted a killer.
We don't have motive. We have what did he say? We don't have evidence. So that means no motive and no weapon or whatever. And yep, that's those two things are evidence.
Negatory.
Negatory.
Nice.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, no, Big Buddha. Yeah, J.J. Abrams, cinematographer, definitely moonlighted.
Big Buddha, legend.
So, Sergeant heads backstage to confront the Mystery Girl because he's now convinced that she's responsible for the murders. He's waylaid by the other strippers, but Dollface points him in the right direction. However, even though the sergeant gets the drop on her, she's able to turn the tables, tries to cut his face, but he's able to shoot her twice, and she escapes. As he's bleeding from the neck and she dashes out the door, he vows revenge on the Mystery Girl. We cut to Mystery Girl with gunshot scars being introduced again during a striptease, and we know in our bones that the cycle will start anew. And thus concludes the story of
Dun, dun, dun.
Change of Face.
Well, I fell into a daydream then when you were even talking about it.
Yeah, just listening to you talk about it reminds me of how shitty it is.
Like it starts at such a high, and then it just gets.
Well, that's one of the problems with this movie is that in the first 5 minutes, I mean, it's one of the many problems. But in the first 5 minutes, one of the big problems with this movie is that it peaks 5 minutes in. In the first 5 minutes of the movie, you get what's her name, Varela.
I'd argue that it peaks
poking the girl's eyes out and then licking it all, and then you get the tit eyes. All of that's in the first 5 minutes, and then from there it's just
it's just a long way.
Because the first time you watch the movie, you see those things in the first 5 minutes, and you're like, "Oh man, this is gonna be great! This is like crazy off the wall stuff." And then it just slow motion drives you off of a cliff.
It's like sinking into sand during the whole
beginning of this. Like
it's like running in a swimming pool.
Yeah.
You don't know what's happening. The rest of this movie. You're like on board. That's why we said at the beginning of this, if you have any interest in watching this movie, was
sorry, the comment from Matt is hilarious.
Shut up, Matt. Carry on, Snob.
Because as we finish off, Morella offers us less clothes and a pithy remark. We're off into our final story, Drujika, Baroness of Blood. Now, I found a review for Verotika, and I just want to kind of use this as a framing for this actual story. He says that this is the best one out of the three stories because it has the most moody and emotive filmmaking and the best set design and the best production value, and really has a great, quote, great performance by Alison Haig, who plays the Baroness.
Does he mean
right when you hear our discussion about the rest of this movie? Because holy shit! And Katie, yeah, this movie is 90 minutes long.
It doesn't seem that much, Katie. It seems about 5 fucking hours.
Yeah, it seems like it's forever, but it's split up into to pretty much 3 equal parts of roughly 30 minutes. Each of the 3 stories is about 30 minutes.
Drujika Blood is a moody Euro-Gothic take on the Baroness of Bathory tale, which shows that a rich woman bathing in the blood of virgins in the hope of staying eternally young.
Bathing in the blood of what? Sorry.
As she selects.
Hang on, stand by. Bathing in the blood of.
So she's a virgin. Yes, Contessa, she's pure. Yes.
A virgin.
Bathing in the blood of virgins. Virgins.
So,
look like I'm on.
So I will say that
Roger Rabbit.
As I was typing up my notes for this movie, the Georgette and the Albino Spider took up the most of my time. Change of Face had a pretty good one. I was able to type up my notes for the Baroness of Blood in the 5 minutes before we started the live stream. So just keep that in mind as we go through it. So as the clip that Chris just showed, after she selects a place for her victim from the village, Drujika selects a victim to be drained for her bath. So she goes back to her castle and has this line of blonde-haired virgins that she's
Virgins.
Virgins.
That
would be called virgins.
We don't want to be culturally rude here. The Countessa bathes in her blood. Her lackey, okay, this is amazing. Her lackey brings in a fresh girl, and the Baroness has her throat cut so she can take a blood shower. I cannot overemphasize in this very serious scene that's shot seriously by a director who's taking this seriously. She cuts her throat and spends 5 minutes in a geyser shower of blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally 5 minutes as well.
Is this the scene where she's with the other girl? Because I remember when you and I watched it, because Justin, like full disclosure, Justin and I watched this last year during lockdown. We were having Wednesday get-togethers and watching movies on FaceTime to keep ourselves sane during lockdown. We watched this movie. And I remember when we watched it that one of us, I can't remember if it was you or me, one of us said, "Oh, so apparently lesbian blood porn is a thing."
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So after she's done with this, she admires the rejuvenation effects of bathing in blood. So those 2 sentences right there, those 2 sentences take up 10 minutes of screen time of her sitting in a fucking bloodbath.
Literally.
For 5 minutes. Then she cuts someone's throat and then does this for another 5 minutes.
Oh, it's
and
atrocious,
man. Goddamn mirror.
And the whole scene.
5 minutes. Just make it.
Oh, no. I will not allow you to disparage the mirror scene. The mirror
the
scene,
ass and face.
the mirror scene is the greatest thing ever committed to celluloid. That is, I think of all of the thousands of bad movies that we've watched together over the years, I think that mirror scene might be the best scene we have ever witnessed. It is literally 2 minutes and 18 seconds. I clocked it. 2 minutes and 18 seconds of her looking at her face, stepping back and checking her ass, looking at her face, stepping back and looking at her ass. 2 minutes and 18 seconds, uninterrupted, no dialogue.
You know what? Okay, I'll give you this. You know what is a real accomplishment in this scene when you consider the
Scorsese couldn't have pulled that shot off.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Camera in the mirror. Like, that's impressive to me. Sorry.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. For all of the other bullshit this movie has, you don't once see a camera in the mirror or lens flare or anything in that scene. Like, there's plenty of lens flare in other ones, but it's great. It's fantastic. It's 2 minutes of nothing, and he got away with it.
I need the mirror scene.
You don't, mate. No, you don't, Devin.
Yeah,
give it a crack, mate.
That's Brother Devon. He does not need the mirror scene.
Let me know how low your blood pressure gets before you pass out.
She's admiring herself in the mirror like a goddamn cockatoo for 2 minutes. She walks into a room with a girl hanging upside down for some change, who's begging for her life, which I absolutely love the fact that she's begging her for her life, when she's literally wearing a silver dress with a skull tiara. Like,
that's sometimes.
So, and realizes again.
Katie Curl is bringing the
Actually,
comments.
thinking about it, Katie spends a lot longer in the mirror doing that.
I was gonna say, I think I know who Katie is, and her husband's a bastard.
Yeah, proper prick.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What I love about this too is that you can tell, and this is one of those things like you should have just cut or reshot it. Is that she cuts the throat, and then the actress playing the victim goes limp like she's dead, and then the Baroness massages the back of her neck where the blood pump is at.
You can see her pushing the button.
You can see her. You can.
Push it down like a tube of toothpaste, another bunch of blood, which runs down the actress's face, and she gags and chokes.
And you can see the tube.
Edges up her nose. She's all.
Yeah.
You can see the tube coming out of her neck, and you can see the Countess like squeezing the trigger. It's great. It's fantastic.
It's horrible.
Feeling properly refreshed.
That's a funny part. That's sort of the highlight. One of the highlights of that story.
It is. The
way
other
I jumped
thing
up when you pointed something actually happened.
Yeah,
like that last one.
Oh, it is terrible. It is so. I think it's the last one that made me not want to watch it.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely what it is, because it's by the point that you get to that last story, you're like,
exactly
what the fuck is going on?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. There is he must have had a huge horse budget.
Oh
in
yeah.
that last story, because he spent like 5-minute scenes. I mean, I get it. I know we keep harping and beating this dead horse, but this long, elongated scenes. But on the horses, they're just riding around forever.
Yeah,
but the whole thing
doing nothing.
Like
doing nothing. It has to have been like, oh, I spent $10,000 of my budget on these horses, so we're gonna fucking use them.
To be fair,
that last one,
this story does have the best production value out of all three of the stories. Like,
but you were talking about the victim, like how it's great that she was actually, begging for her life while the Countess is wearing the skull tiara. That peasant begging for her life is the closest thing we get to any conflict in the third story. There is no conflict. There's no central narrative at all. It's just
there isn't
blood and crazy shit. That's it.
Yeah.
So feeling properly refreshed after that, she decides to go for a horse ride and a walk at night. And I want to say this: in bad movies, it's not uncommon the boom mics dropping in to see. Maybe you might catch a glimpse of a camera in a mirror or something like this. I'm not lying. At 1 hour and 16 minutes and 24 seconds in this movie, you clearly see a camera and a crew member right next to the Baroness.
Yeah.
It's not even hidden. It's like the shot hangs on this person, and you see her walking towards the camera, and you see the other camera and a cast member in the background. And I'm just like, what the ever loving? Are you kidding me?
I mean, they did it in Titanic.
I mean, they had a water bottle and a Starbucks cup on Game of Thrones. So
yeah. So what's your problem, mate?
Yeah, jeez.
Probably gave more of a shit.
Setting some pretty damn high standards.
Thrones.
What was that?
I said, let's be honest. I think Danzig gave more of a shit about this movie than they did about season 8 of Game of Thrones. So.
He must have just missed it, right?
Missed it.
He just missed it, didn't he? Easy done, isn't it?
Yeah.
£1 million.
Listen, hey,
it's only $1 million, isn't it?
Writing is hard. Doing this stuff is hard. This is a perfect example of how like you can have all the ambition and all of the background knowledge and all of the experience in the world, and it's hard. It's hard to do this stuff.
Oh yeah. Directing is not easy. Like
just creativity in general, whatever it is, writing, directing, drawing, music, whatever. It's hard to be creative. Very hard.
So she feeds the wolf some meat, which I assume was one of her victims. I don't know. And tells the wolf to go find her a new victim. So now this is how she also goes finds victims, whatever. So as the Countessa, as so called by her lackey, returns to her castle, at the altar of her cave, she cuts open her next victim. Using black magic, she's able to reach right through the ribcage and pull out a horse's heart that is still beating. And then she lovingly eats it. Not gonna lie, the effect of her cutting open the body is actually not too bad. But she literally just reaches right through the rib cage, Kali Ma's that bitch, and pulls out a heart.
Kali Ma.
Like, this is a horse's heart that you just pulled out of this woman, and then she eats it as it's still beating. Then
she was.
I do like. Hey, credit to them again. They got the size right.
What, the size of the heart?
Yeah, a lot of bad movies would have had like just.
How is it supposed to be that big? Then is it massive?
Yeah, I mean, horses are big animals, so they have their organs are much larger. So they're big animals. So yeah, they got the size. I mean, I'm not a horseologist or whatever, but
I'm gonna look it up now, and I bet if it turns out that horses just happen to have really tiny hearts, I'm gonna edit this.
No, I'll eat crow. I'll eat, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, they're big animals.
No, you're probably right. I mean, you are right.
My point was that a lot of other bad movies would have just had like a normal like handful of heart, like a human size heart.
Yeah.
But they went full bore.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna eat a heart, that's not a really appetizing meal. But a horse heart pulled out of a woman's body, I mean that does it for you.
Yeah.
A girl is able to escape, but she's struck down by the palace guards. She's brought before the Contessa and her executioner. The Contessa tells her she will cut off her head and bathe in her blood. But then the executioner cuts her head off, and she picks it up, looking into her fluttering eyes. Which I love, that she's like, oh, I would use your blood for a bath. But then she just cuts the head off and lets it bleed onto the dirt. I'm like, that just seems like a waste. I mean...
But there's plenty more peasants.
Rift or just full of virgins or virgins? I mean, like, is this something she just pluck off the virgin tree or something like that? Because that's just a waste. And to be fair, that head is
tree.
Virgin.
Let's say that. So after this, she carries the head and very conscious of the health effects of lighting a lot of candles. She uses magical electric candles to light her way to her trophy room, which is full of other heads. She hangs the heads up and stares lovingly at her collection as we fade out on Druzhika, the Countess of Blood, and thus ends. Verotika.
Mercifully.
Good.
Seriously.
Thus mercifully ends Verotika.
Say something good about it. Say one thing good about the film.
Tits eyes.
That's a good one.
I think
I will say this. Danzig commits to his.
He does. It's like, look, it's like I said before that the criteria for what makes a good bad movie will develop over time, but one of those things is commitment and passion, and he clearly loves what he's doing, and he's not setting out to make a bad movie. He's setting out to make maybe a schlocky movie, but schlock has always kind of been Danzig's MO. But so he commits. I mean, that's.
I'm not going to say that he set out to make anything schlocky. I think he set out to make a pretentious, horror movie.
Oh, Von Smoot is chosen violence. I think. He's throwing out. Like he's throwing haymakers out here.
Would you watch it just before you go to bed so you can sleep well? It's mate. Von, let you down there.
That's the worst Von Smoot is honestly in the order they come out. I think Derjet and the Albino Spider, Change of Face, and then the Baroness of Blood. Because while we made the Baroness of Blood sound interesting just by our discussion of it, I cannot emphasize how little actually happens in that movie. And by the time anything interesting does happen, you're so fucking bored that you just don't care anymore.
I think I agree. It's it peaks in the first story, and then the second story is a little bit worse, and then the third one is just a train wreck.
Totally agree. It's just a direct slide into hell.
And I think for me, I'm going to come at it from a writer nerd kind of standpoint. And to me, the reason that the third one is worse is that lack of conflict, because there is, at least as badly as it's done and as badly as it's executed, there is a central conflict in the second story that is missing in the third one.
And in the first.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Von, I respect
the first has a central conflict.
It's okay.
Again, not well executed.
Still be friends. Yeah. Sure.
I look at this and I go, it's one of those things. I go, I respect what you're trying to do, and I appreciate that you're passionate about it, but just don't.
I just feel like he had the commitment, but he didn't have the
picture on the front, and you see what you're aiming for, and then you take all those puzzle pieces, just smash them all together, and you say, "I'm done." It's like,
I think he just ran out of energy, man. I think he had all these ideas, and they didn't take him as far as they thought he'd take him. And once he got halfway through the film, he was like, "Shit," and that's why. And he just cobbled together whatever he had on the cutting room floor, and that's why.
You know what I think?
Just shots of a person looking in the mirror for the last one.
But those are stylistic choices he made because he's influenced.
That's the sort of bullshit you come up with when you fucking fuck up your A-level art exam and then you just scribble on it and then go,
but no, listen, Max, all of the influences that he cites for the movie are movies that do that. So he's doing that.
No, it's shit because I like shit.
Yes, it's shit because I'm influenced by shit. But I don't know.
If you watch the original Suspiria, if you watch The Beyond with Mario Brava, you watch Fulci, those type of giallo films do have that sense of very slow atmospheric building, watching the characters kind of just build this sense of tension and dread throughout. And that's what he's going for. The problem is there's no mystery, no anything. There's nothing there to drive that sense of tension. It's all just, here's a fucked up thing. Let's hold on it for an interminable amount of time.
Yeah, he's done it very, very on the nose, hasn't he? He's just gone, just lingering shots. That's all I need is lingering shots.
And he does that again, like Max, you brought up earlier, that he wanted to make the movie as much like the comic as possible. And in the comic, the page doesn't move either.
Yeah.
But this is also, I think,
there's no audio.
Right. There's no audio. There's no, like, the camera doesn't move. Everything just sits still there for a really, really, really long time.
I'm getting it now.
Yeah. But this is also, I think, a good example for our friends, our fellow comic book friends, that you don't really want a film that's like a faithful adaptation of the comic. These are different mediums, for sure. And they should be treated differently. They should be treated differently, and so you don't want a complete straight adaptation.
No, it can work. There are what is to the rule, but on the whole, I agree.
There's the inspiration from the comics, using the comics as storyboards to inspire the action. That's not a bad thing necessarily, but a faithful adaptation of it isn't going to be the thing going to drive your story. Like at the end of the day, none of these shorts have any kind of cohesive plot to them. They're just there, like, and they're strung together by it was one of the things, like when we were talking about this movie before we earlier in the week when we were talking about this movie, it reminded me of Tarumba, which is this Turkish horror movie.
Of course it did. Yeah.
A really high production value, and in it,
Here we go.
there's fucked up shit in this. Like there's some messed up things in this movie. Like, and they do
Buddha.
really, to pull it off. The problem is that the horror isn't connected to the story in any way. It's just fucked up shit just to see fucked up shit. And that's the same thing. That's the problem with this movie, is that you're seeing all these kind of messed up, crazy things, but they're not connected to any of the plot. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Before people start
How do you get
flooding
through
the chat, before people start flooding the chat room with examples of faithful adaptations of comics, I was being an asshole and trolling Max. I was.
We're doing an episode on Man of Steel. We're not. I'm not. Just leave it there. But we are doing an episode on Man of Steel. Carry on, Snob.
Okay, look. Let's.
And you can jump onto that one as well, Buddha, because I know you feel the same way as Chris. Sorry, Snob.
Chris, what do you think about this? What do you give this thing?
It's a shit movie. I don't think it rises to the level of garbage film. Obviously, I couldn't bring myself to watch it a second time, so everything I'm saying is going to come across as bullshit because I have already admitted to not watching it a second time. Yes. But I did watch it one time. But I don't know. Maybe it's the metalhead in me and I do love Glenn Danzig. I don't,
No, I don't.
Listen, here's how important this guy is. Okay. He founded the Misfits in the 70s, punk band from New Jersey. Without the Misfits, there is no Metallica, there is no Slayer and all of those guys. Those guys were the Misfits were one of the major influences for those like early 80s thrash metal bands. And so the influence of Glenn Danzig can't be understated. And I think for that reason, I begrudgingly can't call this a garbage movie.
Right. Okay. Well,
I'm being completely honest that I'm a sellout.
No, that's all right. I come at it from the metal side, from the visual side, because like the comics that it was based on, Simon Bisley did a lot of the art for it. Most of the art, in fact, I think the art for the poster is the Biz.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm a massive fan of the Biz and always have been. So I came in. That's why I perhaps overlaid an extra layer of expectance on it because of that. I would say this: there are many. We're going to discover this more and more throughout the show, right? With every episode, we're going to discover all the different categories of good, bad movies that there are, right? Whatever you want to call them. And some of them you can go back and rewatch, just like any other movie genre. And some of them I would recommend that you only watch once because then you get to have a good conversation about it, which is fun. But then I wouldn't recommend you go back because it's too painful. It's like someone slapping you around the face and then saying, right, I'm going to slap you around the face again. The expectance is just, I ain't doing it. So, and I think it falls into that category for me. It's in a specific category where it's worth watching once, but you're never going to want to go back to it. And all your conversations are going to be about how shite it is.
A good encapsulation, I think, of that is Von Smoot told me earlier today, told some other people earlier today, rent it, don't buy it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty accurate that, it's a.
Well, I will say this: at every level, this movie is an absolute dumpster fire.
Yes.
One of those things I look at and I go, as you said, Max, it's worth seeing once, especially if you're into this style of movie. If you like kind of really off the wall, extreme horror, or you really are interested in it's a Danzig connection to Danzig, or if you really like just this kind of just anthology style, and you're up for a good laugh, it's good for once. But if you are even questioning whether or not you'd like it, or even questioning whether or not you'd enjoy it, it's not worth the time. You're better off just freaking driving for an hour and a half in the back roads of England and just staring at cows. So I think honestly, give it a go if you're interested. and hopefully you get something out of it. And hopefully the detailed rundown that we gave of it doesn't ruin the first experience, because that's really what it is. That first time you see it, you're just like, holy shit.
You need to not see it coming.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Von Smoot, I think Von Smoot summed it up pretty good that that it would have been shit if Danzig hadn't been invested, but he really Danzig really believes in this movie, and so I think that's kind of my point, is that
he's got that new one
shows.
coming as well, hasn't he? What's the new one?
Yes, Death Rider and the House of Vampires. I can guarantee you that will be on a future episode of the Snob and the Slobs. Yeah. So I think that it's going to pretty much wrap up episode 1 of the book club that nobody asked for, the Snob and the Slobs. So next week we will be, let me pull this up real quick. We've got our movie for next week is going to be Fight of Fury, written, directed, and starring Shuni B. This is a kung fu movie. Before anybody in the chat asks, that's not Chuck Liddell, but he will probably be referred to.
He looks just like him.
That he will be referred to as poor man's Chuck Liddell.
Yes.
Next week when we do the show. So before we go, does anybody have anything that they want to promote? Anything that's coming up? Max, do you have any? You've got a book coming, right?
Yes, Rokan. Go and check it out on Indiegogo, or hook up with me on Twitter or anywhere on social media on Max Headroom on all of there, and there'll be a Rokan link. It's a fantasy, fully painted, hardcore. There are no tit eyes in it.
It's already a fail.
Put them in if you give us some money towards the campaign and send me an email. I'll put tit eyes in for you.
Devin just asked that you said you beat him to his question.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, that's me.
Justin, do you have anything coming up? Anything you want to recommend to people?
I'm super boring. I don't have anything to plug at the moment, but me and my wife are both involved in theater and stuff like that. So as shows come up, I will be using this space to encourage people to visit. Also, I will plug that if in any areas near you, you do have amateur theater companies or anybody doing amateur arts, please go out and support them. Obviously, COVID-19 has been incredibly hard on the arts, especially so on amateur theater, and these are the people that are doing it because they love it. So please, if you have the means and the opportunity, go support your local amateur theater or your local amateur artists, because they put as much passion and are probably better at this than Danzig was. So that's my plug.
Good.
For me, I'm currently working on my next comic project, Heavy Hitters, with an artist that's a really good friend of mine, but you guys wouldn't know him. He lives in Canada. And I'm also starting the early stages of outlining a horror novel that I've had an idea for quite a while, and I'm hoping to get that moving. But for Heavy Hitters, we're hoping sometime this year to have a short, about a 5 or 6 page comic that'll come out for free, probably through social media, to kind of get everybody interested. And then next year we want to do a 60-page book, probably on Indiegogo. So keep an eye out for that. As far as a recommendation, I recently discovered a self-published horror author named Lee Mountford, a British author. Fantastic. On Audible or Kindle, you can get get some collections of his stuff for 3 books for the price of 1 that are really good. I've read his Supernatural series and his Extreme Horror series, and they're both really good and worth a read. So I think that's about it for this week. And we always want to end with the immortal words of John Waters: get more out of life. See a fucked up movie.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Have a great week.